you don't have to be perfect because you're not going to be perfect, but you do need to have perfect intentions. You don't have to be perfect. Mistakes are going to happen, but you need to step out here with the intent that you're not going to try to make mistakes. You are going to try to do what you're being asked to do. Those are going to be your intentions.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach at the University of North Texas, Ross Hodge. Coach Hodge was named North Texas 19 head men's basketball coach in April of 2023. He was elevated to head coach after 6 seasons as the Mean Green's associate head coach under Grant McCaslin. In his first season at UNT, they finished with a 19-15 overall record and reached the second round of the 2024 National Invitation Tournament. Coach Hodge led the Mean Green to a 10-8 conference record, which is the most league wins and best league winning percentage by a first-year UNT head coach. Prior to arriving at UNT, he spent time as an assistant coach at Arkansas State, Colorado State, and 6 seasons as a junior college head coach. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
What's up, man?
What's up, Coach? How are you?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
Awesome. I love that background right there.
Thank you.
That looks great.
So what's going on in your world?
Oh, just finished second period athletics. So living the dream here, man. Get to work with my players, and it was a good day.
Nice.
What about you?
We take Wednesdays kind of our off day in this time period. So we'll go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday.
Nice.
So, probably bop around a little bit to some high schools here in a bit. And
yeah, what were you saying before that?
I was just asking what all you guys did today.
We typically do 2-ball Tuesdays. We'll start with some 2-ball stuff. And I still like to stick to some of the Pistol Pete basics at the beginning of workouts, like 1-ball ball handling and things that, I don't know, a lot of people smarter than me say not to do anymore. But just something about creating that feel that they have and confidence that they can do some things and maybe connect some hand-eye coordination. And so we did that. We always do some type of shooting thing to get their feet down and their shots quicker. And then we're starting to implement our flow, our offense, and really just taking it kind of at 2 positions at a time, let them learn some of the actions, and then play 2-on-2 out of it. So I think 43 minutes, we get a lot done in that time.
Nice. Yeah, man. I've always said if you want to watch some efficient practices, go watch high school coaches' practices, man, because they're efficient. They know how to maximize gym space with limited coaches and all kinds of kids, and they get a lot of stuff done, man, in a short amount of time, for sure.
I think you're right about that. I mean, it's me and 30 in there right now with 6 baskets. And so the goal is to have very small lines, very little stand around time, and everybody, for the most part, with a ball in their hand the majority of the workout. What really helped me a lot with that was PGC, was directing for them, because when you've got 8 baskets and 120 athletes that you have to train, obviously we had some basket instructors at some of the side goals, but you learn how to teach them something close, send them out, stop them when they're wide or out in the gym, and just give them one nugget and then let them to continue to go. So that was really helpful for me. I just want to say first, thank you so much for giving up your time. This is an honor for me to get to talk with you. It's always fun when I get to talk with coaches at your level that are right around us, the DFW area. So this is an honor for me, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, man. Super excited about it.
Congratulations on moving into the new role.
I mean, it obviously happened really fast, right after the NIT championship, and credit to our administration. They were able to, move swiftly, and probably helped in the time period of like with the portal and the chaos that college basketball is the spring, summer now, definitely gave us a chance to hang on to some of our better players, which is what you have to do in today's time period.
Yeah, because if they would have taken their time, maybe 2 or 3 months later, and it's near the end of the summer, you might walk into a situation that's completely different. where it's the cupboard's bare and there's not that, or there's still a lot out there, I guess. But that is a good
Yeah, I
thing that they
mean,
did that.
yeah, I mean, even a couple weeks, a couple weeks of uncertainty, because that's what people take advantage of,
Yeah,
uncertainty,
yeah.
and then once the doors opened and people start listening, then you never know what could happen.
So you were with Coach McCaslin, who he's one of my favorites, also, by the way, and you were with him for 6 years at UNT. Also before UNT, though, where were you?
Arkansas
All
State. Yep.
yeah. So
Yep.
obviously you know him really well, and
Yep.
and you were huge on the defensive side of the ball and helping to grow this amazing culture and system that you guys have there. Moving over to that head coaching role now at the same place, how much of it is, you want to bring in some of your ideas, your concepts, and how much of it is, hey, listen, it's not broke, but let's just kind of continue on with what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that led to the level of success that we had, is that we were very closely aligned, with how we viewed uh the core principles of what helps you win basketball games. We're different people, obviously, so that how you get to the desired destination may be a little different, but the agreement of where you need to get to was very closely aligned. So there won't be a ton, from a philosophical standpoint, or, hey, man, like, what we really believe, playing really good defense, being connected offensively, making the right play, sharing the ball, being great teammates, working our tail off. A lot of that won't change.
Right. You kind of mentioned some of those core principles. Was that the list of it right there? Or what are some of those things that, obviously from game to game, things might be different a little bit depending on who you're playing. But what are some of those objectives that you feel like, guys, if we hit these marks, we're going to have a really good opportunity to win?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can, limit people's transition opportunities defensively, obviously, if you're always having really good floor balance, if you're getting back defensively, if you're keeping the ball in front of you, if you're making people take tough shots, and then giving your opponents one crack at it. It sounds very, very simple, but it really is true, man. If you're not giving up a lot of second chance opportunities, and then offensively, if you're able to get out and get some easy baskets, and then, not throw the ball to the other team, like, you will have opportunities to be in basketball games. And, we tell our guys a lot, it's not football. It's not like you have an offensive team that runs on the floor and then they get stopped, and now here comes the defense. So as much credit as our defense has got through the last, 3 or 4 years, we've also had a very efficient offense,
Hmm.
and it's all tied in together. So your shot selection leads into, your transition
No
defense a
doubt.
lot of times. And so, if we feel like if you can do those things, you're going to give yourself a chance. Like you said, now game to game, how you go about those things may change, but fundamentally, man, if we're taking care of the ball, taking good shots, getting back defensively, giving up one shot only, we feel like we got a good chance.
I think that's important for all coaches to hear, but especially high school coaches, somebody at your level, just viewing the game in such a simple way. Because I think sometimes, when we're listening to coaches or we're watching, a clinic or things, like we're hoping for the secret. Give me that detail that that we don't know, that can really help us to get better and win. But the secret is, I feel like a lot of the great coaches out there, they focus on simple things. Dick DeVenzio, he had 4 rules of basketball, that kind of the founder of PGC, that help you win. And one was, don't throw the ball to the other team. It's like a simple rule,
Yeah.
but golly,
Oh,
get more shots, limit
yep.
their transition, take care of that thing.
Yep. Yep. And I worked for Larry Eustace for 5 years as well. 1 year at Southern Miss and 4 years at Colorado State. We actually got an at-large bid at Southern Miss, and then we got an at-large bid at Colorado State as well. Went to the NIT another time, and Coach Eustacia was probably the master of simplicity
Hmm.
and didn't overcomplicate it. And there would be certain things that you know you could look at us as a team or as a program and maybe feel like, hey, that's they're not spending enough time focused on that. But like Coach was like, we were going to get back, we weren't going to turn the ball over, and we were going to rebound as if our lives depended on it. And that was what we did every single day. That was what he cared about. And again, he's another one that probably won, 65-70% of his games and did things at a lot of places that people didn't think you could do.
Was he at Iowa State early? Because I think when I was at Baylor, I believe he was the coach there.
Yeah, he was at Iowa State, won the Big 12
Yep.
twice. Went to the Elite Eight. Before that, he was at Utah State. He was really before Stu Morrill, like he was the one that really kind of got that thing going. They went to the NCAA tournament at Utah State, and then he was at Idaho after that.
Hmm.
So he took, 4 different schools to the NCAA tournament. And he was, like I said, he was the simplest form of coaching that you'd ever be around.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
Like I think so many coaches, we have this long 2-3 page practice plan. And the challenge is like to make sure that everything actually leads to winning and helps us to maximize our time. So how do you decide what you're going to work on in practice?
Some of it is, I think this time of year, you're just trying to get the basic fundamentals of, your foot angles on closeouts. And we're a very simple terminology type of team. We don't, just making sure we're calling ball every single time the ball moves, making sure we're, on the midline and who has the rim. And so there's a lot of different ways. I think that's something that coaches can kind of challenge themselves with, is like, you want to do these core things in defensively or offensively, whatever it is, but how many different ways, how many different drills, how many different so there's a newness and not a staleness, but you want to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah.
And you're holding the guys accountable to the 4 or 5 same things that you really, really want them to be held accountable to, but just in different ways. And then you got to kind of evaluate when you're watching film, like, hey, man, we're not doing this very well. Maybe we're not level on a ball screen coverage. Like, let's really show a couple clips of this before practice. Let's, break that down in a shell segment or even 2 ends. And then, let's really make sure when we're playing that one of the assistants is watching that and we're trying to improve in that area. Because you can feel like, because this time of year you're watching your teams practice and you're like, man, we have to get better at everything, but you can't get better at everything every
That's
day.
Right.
So I think just kind of weighing specifically, hey man, let's offensively, let's make sure our guys are running all the way to the corners, like little bitty things, and make it an emphasis for that day, while you're always going to have your core values. And you're always going to talk about, hey man, we're going to grab every rebound with 2 hands. That's every day. We're going to, sprint back and call ball and be in gaps every day, but that may not be the emphasis that day, but
Yeah.
that's going to be understood. And just how you differentiate from it, how you do it, what do you want to do, kind of depends on what you're seeing.
How do you hold them accountable throughout a practice to those things? I mean, besides just constantly yelling out those reminders, like I think because coaches will sometimes write down or say, hey, guys, this is the emphasis for the day. But then the practice goes by and there really wasn't much accountability to that thing. Well, let's just take running to the corners. If you don't see that happening, how do you get them, motivate them anyway to do that?
Yeah, I think there's, like, this time of the year, because so many of the habits are not formed, and guys, you are introducing some new concepts, and so they are legitimately learning what you want them to do.
Hmm.
So now I think it's just more about, hey, stopping it, correcting it, showing it on film. And then when you do get to the point, as a team or as a program, say you're doing a defensive shell drill, and hey man, we're calling ball every time. We want high hands on the closeout. We're going to be in a stance. We're going to make sure we're getting to the rim. Some guys, when you start doing it, they don't know what they're doing. And then when it gets to the point where they do kind of know what they're doing, but maybe the concentration or the effort level isn't great enough, then I think that's when you start looking at maybe having some sort of accountability structure.
Yeah.
We've done little things before. I mean, any standard stuff. Maybe you're doing perfect possession defensively or two stops in a row to get off defense. And if you don't call ball, then it doesn't count. Or we'll have a student assistant stand next to us and just, hey, like Matt, no stance. And he's just over there tallying. And when that segment's over, how many ever tallies you have, you're going to run, but you can get a plus for getting a deflection or taking a charge. And so you can negate it that way. But I do think you got to be careful, because the easy answer would be, well, as soon as they don't do something you ask them to do, stop it and run for it or punish them. But if they don't know what they're doing,
Yeah.
then you're really not even, it's hard to hold somebody accountable for something they don't know.
Yeah.
But once they know it, and then, like I said, then it's just like, hey, maybe they're not putting the concentration in that day. They're not putting in the effort. They're not putting in the intensity. Then I think you can start looking at some like penalties, I guess you'd say, for not doing what you're supposed to do, just to help remind you.
I like that. The penalties, not punishments, right? We never say that word. I think you're right on the money, and maybe that's a part of becoming like a master teacher. And I think that's what coaches, that's what we aspire to be, our master teachers. Is if they're continuously making these mistakes, then obviously we haven't taught it well enough yet. Once we feel like we have taught it yet, and then I think that accountability can really come in. And you nailed it with, I love the idea of tallying it, or that possession doesn't count if you don't get it. So instead of thinking consequences, I think we can build into whatever drill we're working on, whatever standard, violations. Like instead of just traveling, fouls, things like that are normal basketball violations, to get into the corners to us is huge. And we call that getting dangerous. And if guys can't rim run because there's a defender in between them, we don't want to just cut to cut. We're not, what is his name? Jackie Moon from Semi-Pro. It's just going to go rover and run around. Because of that, we want to get dangerous, which means as we get to those deep corners. And the moment they don't, violation, failure to be dangerous. And it's just a change of possession. I've noticed by using those the violations as one, like that cuts to them more. Losing possession, not getting a credit for a bucket, because another one is pointing to the passer. We always want to do that. Well, you shoot it, you trot back, and before half court, you don't point. That's no bucket. That doesn't stop the game. We don't put them on the line and run. We're not going to make it like this extrinsic, I'm afraid to make a mistake because there'll be pain involved.
Yeah.
Man, just make it a violation.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
So yeah, I like that. I like the failure to point. That's a good one. Reinforcing it through film, showing what it looks like, pulling up old game film, how it works, how it's going to show up, why it's important, obviously you're dealing with, a wide variety of age groups, and even at this level, why is important, like anybody with kids, you're going to know, like, I have a sophomore daughter and a middle school son. So like, why has been in their vocabulary for a long time, but it is important to understand, like, hey, this is why we want you to run the corners. When you run to the corners, that's going to open up driving lanes. That's going to open up a rim run. Hey, this is why we want to call ball. So we don't have two people. We're already scrambling around. We don't want two people running to the ball. You're not calling ball so you know it. You're calling ball so everyone knows that I have the ball, and we can fan out accordingly. So the why is important.
I think you nailed it there with players today wanting to know the why. And there's this big discussion of, are players different today than they were, like, even back, because you and I are about the same age. I think we played around the same time.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the coaches that we had, or just how we were raised, or how it was, there really wasn't a lot of asking why.
No.
Just tell me what to do, I'll do it. And if I don't, I know I'm either not going to play or I'm going to run. There's going to be pain involved. And I think that's the biggest change. And maybe it's because of the phones, the fact that they can find the why to anything pretty much in 15 seconds.
Yep.
That for them, all of a sudden, with us to not be allowed to ask why, that's foreign. And so I think that would be a big change in kids today to when we played.
Well, the truth is, and we know this now, as we, like you said, the information age, the ability to understand what's going on outside of your program, whereas you were saying at the end, like, shoot, man, even in the 2000s, if you were at Washington State, you didn't know what the University of Florida was doing.
Yeah.
So, like, even from a coaching standpoint, just like that.
I mean, there's a hype video every week now.
Like, hey, this is the only way, like, this is how you win. Well, the truth is you can win games a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Now all coaches may not want to admit it, because we all would like to think our way is the best way. But the reality is there's lots of ways you can win games with playing a 2-3 zone. You can win games pressing. You can win games playing super fast. You can win games playing super slow. That is the truth. So to not be authentic with your players and act like there's only one way and this is the only way to do it, well, then they start knowing that you're not being truthful. You're not being authentic.
And now they have a portal that they can jump right into when they feel like that's happening. So authenticity, like you said, clarity has to be more important for you than ever before, I would imagine.
Yep. No, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
You had a great point earlier too about the drills that you choose and how you're right on the money. Here's the objective. There's probably 5, 6, 7 different drills or ways that we can meet that. And I think that's part of the fun of practice planning for me is, man, I don't want to be teaching or having them go through the same thing. I want to put them in different scenarios, but that will still reach our objective. So for us, like, we don't screen that much. We're 5 out, pace and space. We try to keep bodies really separate from each other to create double and triple gaps. So for me to go and see a really cool screening drill on Twitter that got a lot of likes and great players are doing it, and it looks really cool, to put that in my practice doesn't make sense. It doesn't help the way that we play. It's not what we're doing. I think that's the danger, is when coaches do follow tons of great people on Twitter or on Instagram, skill work. Just because it looks cool doesn't mean it's actually going to help your players in the style or system that you play. So going back to master teaching, maybe that's a part of it, of the art of it, is being creative, but finding those things that actually match with what you're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And you want to be able to, you do want to be able to keep it fresh, for your players, and you don't want it to be stale. You don't want it to be like, where it's just like, call it like a sheep mentality, where you're just kind of showing up because Coach Hodge said, you get the text message, oh, we're practicing at 10, you show up, you're aimlessly, on autopilot. I do think it's good. And that's what I'm saying. You can mix in different drills that day, but it's all kind of part of the same overarching principle of what you want to get done. Maybe you do it in different orders. We've done that before too. Maybe you come into a practice and you just start off with a game, just like, instead of even, how the flow usually goes, you stretch, you do some individual work, you do some breakdown stuff, you do some transition stuff, then you play. So maybe it is just like, hey man, let's just hop in right away, and let's just say, hey, you're down 3 and there's 10 seconds on the clock and we're running, winner, and just hop right into it and just stimulate the brain in a different way. has been helpful at times too. Just when they think they've got it completely pegged on what we're going to do that day, you switch
You
it up
flip
on them.
it.
You start
Yeah.
with your presses, start
Yep.
pressing against each other and just get to competing a little bit more, because obviously players, that's what they like to do. Let's be
Yeah.
honest, they like
No
to
doubt.
play. They like to play.
Coach Drew was great about creating a fun environment. He was the first coach I ever had that did that, where there's music playing. With Coach Bliss, there's never music playing, and it was more of a like a Remember the Titans, zero fun, sir. Like that was kind of the feeling of practice. And then I think overseas, I think they've kind of over the years been experimenting in different ways with different ideas. And like one of our warm-ups was in Iceland was I came out and there was a soccer ball on the floor indoor, that whatever the yellow one is, and we warmed up by playing soccer, which I felt like an idiot because I sucked at it. But it was like, we've never done this, and it was just such an interesting approach. And I think we're kind of catching up, maybe even over here, to doing that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. You've been able to work with a lot of great coaches at some great colleges. What are 3 things, if you had to choose 3 things or characteristics that great coaches have?
I think right off the gate, man, and it was I got a great piece of advice when I got the Paris Junior College head coaching job when I was 25. So I was very young, opportunity of a lifetime, didn't even realize it then how lucky I was. Now I do, But the guy that I played for and worked for as a GA at Commerce, Sam Walker, who was the winningest coach in Texas A&M Commerce history, his longtime mentor and the guy that he worked for forever, he was a guy named Paul Peak. He was the head coach at Texas A&M Commerce, used to be East Texas State and Georgetown for a long time, the NAIA school down there in Central Texas. And I asked him, because he had been a very, very young head coach at a time too. And he was just like, hey, Ross, like you have to be who you are, like you have to be like, don't apologize for your age. Don't try to act like you're some 50-year-old seasoned Grizzly veteran. Like you can still have fun with them, hold them accountable, but don't try to be Coach Walker. Don't try to be Coach Foy, who I played for and worked for at Paris Junior College, who won a national championship at Paris Junior College. Don't try to be me. Don't try to be like Coach Bishop was my height. He's like, you just have to be you. And so I think that's the starter for all really good coaches. I do think there's a level of authenticity to them. They're not trying to be someone else. They are who they are. They're comfortable who they are. And, however that comes across, like players and people respect that, like, hey, he is who he is, and then we talked about it earlier, just the ability to communicate clearly. We talked about that earlier. Like, can you communicate clearly exactly what you're expecting from everyone, from staff, GA, operations, your players? So there's not confusion. There's you use the word clarity. I like that, and I think clarity and lack of confusion comes from being able to communicate, communicate in big groups, communicate in small groups, communicate in one-on-one settings, just to eliminate, outside voices, man, because you mentioned it, man, there's so much noise surrounding these young athletes nowadays.
Yeah.
And if you're also clouding what you're trying to, if it gets cloudy, then it just allows the outside noises to elevate, And then the last one, and I think this is like Coach McCaslin, Coach Drew, you mentioned, obviously Coach Mack coming from
Yeah.
that tree, and even prior to him, Coach Eustace. They have an ability to get a group of people to believe, and they can instill hope into very, very dire situations, and they have a belief that this will work out, and the belief permeates into everyone around them, but it's not through anything other than very, very uh a lot of commitment and a lot of hard work. They also, it's like, like the Bible, it's biblical, like faith without works is dead. So it's
Yep.
not like just some corny, like, oh, we're gonna, there's a work component that matches up to the belief, but ultimately they instill that level of belief into to programs and into people to get things. And then that's where, like, if you look at all those guys, Coach Eustace, Coach Mack, Coach Drew, who's part of that, Coach Foy won a national championship at Pitt, like all the people that are kind of doing things at places that you would say can't happen there, it's because they have that level of belief and they instill it, and then they raise the expectations, and then the work rate meets the expectations and good things happen.
And my follow-up question was going to be, how do you create that in others? And you did kind of answer it next, and because you're right on the money. I mean, there's not a press conference or a parent meeting for high school coaches in the world where that first-time head coach doesn't show up and say the right things. Like, nobody says, "Hey, listen, we're probably not going to be very good, and our culture here is going to suck, and we're probably going to play slow." Like that's the anti-press conference right there.
Yes.
But so everybody says that, like, I believe we can do amazing things here. I mean, golly, 20 years ago, Coach Drew stood in front of us, and we had 6 scholarship players, and said, "I came here to win championships." And me and those other 5 scholarship guys are like, "Well, not this year," like not but he did have that belief in something in the future. Saying it's one thing, and then you nailed it, backing it up with the work ethic and the right communication, or else players are going to see through that real quick, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's where I give, like you said, the anyone on that, Coach Drew, Coach Mack, Coach Eustace, even, like, they set the standard and they reveal the expectations. And then once you get people to believe, and sometimes you have to sift through that. It took us, we were the same way. We took over a North Texas program that was struggling a little bit, and that first team meeting was the same way. You go in there and you're telling those guys, "No, we're going to win championships," and they did the same thing you did, dude. They're like rolling their eyes, like looking at each other, like these dudes are crazy, But when you get, if you really believe that you can do, then the work doesn't seem pointless. And so that is the first part. You have to get them to actually believe, hey man, if we do this, if we put in this type of work, if we will commit ourselves to this, if we will come together, it will pay off. It will pay off. And it doesn't necessarily mean it pays off in championships all the time, because that's the reality too, man. And I think you have to talk about that as well. Talked about it the other day with some of our guys who they didn't, their team was getting their butt kicked that day in practice, and maybe you don't like how the response was. You have to remind them, dude, LeBron James has lost more finals than he has won, but he is not a loser.
Yeah.
Tom Brady has lost Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes has lost Super Bowls. Steph Curry's lost finals. You don't identify them as a loser, but they have lost, and that is part of this sport, unfortunately.
I think having that talk with them is powerful. We rarely talk about what's it going to be like when we lose. We almost talk, in same way with culture. We only talk about culture and wins and losses if it's all going to go right. But we know it's going to go wrong. We know those dark clouds are coming. So helping them to navigate, and hey, when this happens, this is how we're going to show up. This is how we handle it. Coach, I think that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the I remember last year, one thing we showed our guys was Jalen Hurts' press conference after he lost the Super Bowl. And, you know, the level of ownership that he displayed, the level of, leadership. And yeah, you didn't, you didn't cut that clip off thinking like, oh man, that guy's like a loot, it was like that dude's a freaking, it's why he is who he is. It's why
Yeah.
he's in the position that he's in because of the resolve component of it, man. So that is part of it because as we know, everybody wants to be on the floor when confetti's falling and everybody wants to be in the national championship picture and everybody wants to be but not everybody wants to be. We were hurt, banged up, and sick last year, and we were getting beat by 50 at St. Mary's. Not everybody wants to be in that locker room.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be in the locker room that's celebrating the NIT championship. But what the challenge is can you stay together and can you be okay with those moments to get to the next moment, And you kind of have to be able to do both. You do, And like you said, it's kind of probably an under talked about part of sports, but that's the reality, man. That is the reality.
I wrote down that after believe, it really comes down to your confidence too.
Yes.
Because I mean, some people lie pretty well. That's true. That's
Yes.
true. But you can't lie to yourself. Like you look in the mirror. I mean, whether what you're saying to them is really true or not. And over time, cracks will start to really show. So the confidence that you have to have as a coach in yourself, your staff, the system, style of play, the culture, you're like you actually have to believe it yourself in order to get your team to ever get close to that level, right?
Yep. Yeah, man. And I have such I think we all fight it, but I have such a level of respect for, and Coach Mack was that way, man. Like he didn't allow his mind to go any other place than this will work out. And I'm sure he had his moments. That's sure that's where his faith came in. I look at a guy like Deion Sanders, who he is an entertainer, that's part of his persona. But there is a level of belief there that's rooted in work and he wasn't afraid to speak it into existence, where some people kind of shell up and be like, I don't know. He's like, no, we're gonna win. We're gonna win at Colorado. We're gonna do, but he's not just saying that and then they don't go out there and work at he was one of the hardest workers as a player. No one practiced harder than him.
Yeah.
And so he does have that. It matches the level of belief, but I mean, I'll be honest, I mean, I know everybody else probably can say, oh, I knew they'd be good. Like, dude, I didn't think they were going to go to TCU and win in game one. I didn't, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
He did. And he got enough of his players to believe. And like, he was honest about that. Like probably even the whole locker room didn't believe, but now probably a little more do, So there is something to not being, and that doesn't mean that like, with you guys, like Coach Drew saying that, well, they didn't, it took 10, 15 years before they, won a national championship, won a Big 12 championship, or, 4 or 5 years to get all the way to the Sweet
Coach,
16.
we were 8-21. The championship was not won that year. That's for sure.
Yeah. But it didn't stop him from saying this is what we're going to do. And he worked every day with the belief and got all those guys to buy into that. This is going to pay off.
How important do you think it is, especially like in your place or with Deion Sanders, since you brought him up, how important is winning early on to really secure that belief, build on it, have it truly take root in them? Because let's just flip it. Let's just say TCU goes in and blows them out.
Yeah.
And he's been saying all this stuff about what we're going to do. I'm not saying he still can't get there, but that you and I both, that win's huge. And because they won the next week, like how big is that early on?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is there's certainly you want, reinforcements in that, hey man, like I told, like if we do this, if we show up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we put the right work in and we prepare at the right level and we're doing the right things, that this will happen, and it certainly just raises the level of belief, and that's probably the biggest challenge as coaches, is if you're not having that level of success early on, and how do you stay the course. And the first championship we won in 2020 here, we were 6-8 before we got to conference. We were 2-5 to start the year, but we played a very difficult schedule. Lost a close game at VCU, lost at Arkansas, lost to Rhode Island, lost to Utah State, lost to Oklahoma at the buzzer at home.
Oh, wow.
But even in the midst of that, just to be able to kind of like keep going, keep believing, keep working, keep getting better. It is a challenge, when it's not quickly happen, especially in a microwave society where everybody, especially these guys, boy, they do something a little bit and they want it paid off right then.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. I think that's maybe when we do our greatest work as coaches. Is not when it's nice that it worked out that way for Dion. Getting that win was huge, right. Probably catapulted that culture to just another level quicker. But when we do our best job is when we're 6-8, when we're 2-5. I would imagine in those moments, obviously there's things we got to improve, but what's the balance between focusing on, like, let's just take film, focusing on the negative clips when we don't block out, when we didn't get on the floor, when we didn't make a one more, as opposed to finding those positive clips and coaching from that standpoint of, this is how we block out. This is how we get on the floor. Look at that hustle. Man, he was kind of open and he did that one more and delivered a great pass to a great open teammate. What's your balance with that, especially when it might be in losses?
I do think there's something to like the old coaching, philosophy of treating wins like losses and losses like wins. I do think, when you have a big win, it's probably easier to come in with a little more negative intent in your film session, because you're just reminding everyone that, hey man, if this ball goes in, we're coming in this morning and it is a completely different feeling. So we can't ever lose the fact that, like, if you don't do these things well, you run the risk of getting beat,
right?
And the other side, you have a heartbreaking loss, maybe you are pissed as a coach, but maybe you do want to come in and show like, man, we're doing so many things right, and then sometimes you show both, because I do think that is the challenge. It's like right now, if you came and watched us practice, you'd probably see a good play and a bad play and a good play and a bad play and a good play, bad play, bad play. The challenge is, how do you increase the amount of good plays and decrease the amount of negative plays, knowing that to beat really, really good teams, you're going to have 40 minutes of pretty good plays on both ends of the floor. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to play more plays the right way and less plays the wrong way.
I think depending on the time of year that you're training with your athletes or the type of team that you have, like I would imagine, guys that are in the top 10 in the country, they're pretty good players and they can hold their guys to pretty high standards all throughout. My level, with, as you had mentioned, I've got some freshmen that have very little. At Grapevine Faith Christian School, they were choosing between basketball or band. That was their dilemma. And they chose basketball. So, but with that wide range,
I kind of take the approach of Gannon Baker. Throughout most of the year, we're going to celebrate the try. Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to do the right thing. It didn't work out perfectly, but I see where your head's at.
Yeah.
And then believing that at some point it is going to connect fully. But I think celebrating that try gets us from being outcome based and
Yeah.
keeps us in that process based world that we want to be in.
And maybe perfect is a bad, descriptor, but I do like that. And that's what we tell our guys a lot. Like, you don't have to be perfect, because you're not going to be perfect, but you do need to have perfect intentions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't have to be perfect. Mistakes are going to happen, but you need to step out here with the intent that you're not going to try to make mistakes. You're not going to try. You are going to try to do what you're being asked to do. Those are going to be your intentions. That's how you're coming into this practice. You're not coming into this practice like, well, I want to try to show coach what I want to do or what I can do. You have to come into it with the mindset of like, hey man, like, let's have really good intentions on what we're trying to do here, with the understanding it's not going to be perfect, but you do need to have perfect intentions.
I think that goes to confidence with players and building confidence. I don't care what level you're at. I think that is not building it from scratch, but maybe helping players to keep the confidence that they should have. Maybe we call them out on the confidence that they have that they shouldn't, that they haven't earned. But at your level, what do you do to build confidence in your players throughout a year?
I think so much of confidence is rooted in work and work habits. The most confident players have the hardest work habits, man. It's not really tricky to me. Now I do think there's the old adage, like you just mentioned it, like what comes first, like the chicken or the egg, what comes first, a player's confidence or a coach instilling confidence in player, and that's kind of always like, obviously players want to feel confident and they want to feel that their coach has confidence in them. And coaches want to be confident in their players, and so I've always told players, man, I think the biggest thing that you can do is work, man. And through that work rate, you get the benefit of the doubt. I think good coaches will give players that are working their tail off a little bit of, if a guy comes out and he's 0 for 6 in practice from 3, but he was in the gym last night getting 500 shots. As a coach, you're a little more apt to, I'm a little more apt to be like, dude, you'll make the next one. As opposed to the guys in there, 0 for 6, but he hadn't been in the gym in the week. You're going to be a little more like, dude, I don't know if that's a good shot for you.
Yeah. You don't have the right to be confident in that. Like what
Coach Stacey used to always say, dude, you're not practicing on our time. Like this is team practice. This is a team's practice. You're not working on your individual game in our team practice. So
that's gold right there.
So I think there's no other way. Like, and I think film's a great teacher. I think that just allows a player to feel more confident. But man, there's no substitute for good old fashioned like reps, and like you mentioned with you guys, just having the ball in your hand. And you tell our guards, dude, go in there and do 10 minutes of ball handling until your forearms are burning, and
I'm blown away how little players do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Then when you're out there, you're not having like mishandles because it's an extension of your body. So no secrets on that one, man. That's what it is, man. You got to put the work in.
Dina Evans, longtime PGC director, had a great quote. She said, coaches can't take your confidence, but you can give it away. I think that's a reminder for players, is that it's their job to maintain their own confidence. And the way that you maintain your confidence is you earn it.
Yeah.
Like, because it's, I tell my guys, it's like you go into a test and the teacher's standing at the door and she says, hey, be confident. You got this today. And deep in your heart, I didn't study a lick for this thing. Our words mean nothing. But the opposite is true. And I don't feel like you're this way, but there are coaches, I had them, that they will go the negative route quickly to any player, any mistake, anything. That's when the confidence and then protecting their own, not giving it away, I think comes into play. In-game adjustments, coach. Like, those are some that Dick DeVenge. I keep going back to PGC stuff today. I don't know. It's coming to mind, but he had a little line in his book that I thought was funny. He said, let's stop giving too much credit to in-game adjustments. And he kind of said like ... What most of the time happens is after halftime, players start playing harder and they actually do what we're asking them to do. But there are some of those times where you make a change, you make a sub. What's your philosophy on in-game adjustments? How much are you going in like a Jason Garrett type coach of process? We're just going to stick to it, never adjust, which people hated, or guys that just will flip completely on a dime? Where are you at with that?
I think, I don't remember where I saw this or read it. It certainly wasn't my own, like most coaching nuggets aren't, but it's like, I think you start off like first of like, are we doing it hard enough?
Well, it was the Nuggets coach I saw in a press conference said that. He's like,
so you start there, like,
yeah,
okay, are we playing hard enough? The next one would be, are we actually doing what we're asking him to do? So that would probably be like in your Rolodex. Third would be, who are we doing it with? Like you mentioned, substitutions. And then if you like, hey man, we are playing our butt off. We are trying to execute what we're asking our guys to execute. We've made some substitutions and it's still not working. Then I think you got to look at yourself and look at what you're doing and mean, okay, this is not working. And I think the best coaches have the ability, because they're prepared. So in the preparation for that game, if this is your primary ball screen coverage, in the back of your mind, you better be working on what you would go to if this isn't working offensively. Like, hey, these are the kind of the 3 or 4 things that we think we can get, will work. But if it's not working, then what are we going to go to? And making sure that you are layered in that, but I don't think you just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and, and you're trying to do like, well, because I do think there has to be like I said, the first one, like, dude, are we even playing hard enough?
Yeah.
Because it won't matter. And then, are we executing? Are the players, doing what they're, then let's get somebody else in there. Then you do have to be prepared to like, okay, this isn't going to work.
Attacking single gaps, in my opinion, leads to majority of turnovers. So the two guys are within a 5 to 10 foot radius from each other. We should not be trying to attack that gap. And in our offense, if that happens, I think this is for maybe assistant coaches. I was not the best assistant coach, unfortunately, for Wes Watson at McKinney, but be careful of giving those ideas of, hey, we got to get out of this. We got to do something different. If you got to notice, like, if we're attacking single gaps and turning it over, we don't need to get out of our offense. We need to stop doing that thing. That thing is dumb. If we don't do that thing and we will pass and slice, open up a double gap, and we attack that, that's correct. If the double gap's not working, is my personnel correct? Like, do I have guys that can actually do that? Or are they bigger, faster, stronger? All right, maybe we got to run more sets. We got to manipulate some things. Yeah. But I think so many times we see an error and we think we have to do something different. Back to your point. Are the actions, are the tries correct?
Yeah.
That's what we got to ask.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly on that.
Scouting reports are another thing. Are you pretty in-depth, 4 or 5 pages, knowing everything? Or you've said it a few times. I would guess you're simple with it because of all the noise and distractions you said players are under. Man, like, we need to give them a few things. How do you handle scouting reports?
Yeah, we're very, I have one on my desk right here.
Nice.
We're very simple, man, with our scout. Like, we're get that in there where it's not the matrix.
Coach, you're
You
You're
know,
invisible.
one page, cumulative
Yeah.
stats on the back. We try to hit um very, very simple in our scouting report. Personnel, you know, just kind of want to know, their strengths. What are they trying to do offensively? Like legitimately, how do they beat people? I think for young coaches, young assistants, I think they can get a little too fixated on just wanting to tell you what they're doing, what they're running, which is important. But a lot of people can watch a game and like it's like, but how do they beat people?
Yeah.
Like trying to understand like how do they beat people? What do they want to do to win this game? And then what do we need to do to try not to let them do that? you know? Um and
I think that's a
so
powerful question, though, Coach. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know if I asked that very much. I try to get 3 defensive things, 3 offensive keys. Who are the MDs? Who are all this? Like
of
you
course.
go through kind of those basics. But what a great question to ask you and your team and your assistants. What are they trying to do to actually beat people? I think what you're talking about there is identity. Like,
Yeah,
do we know the identity of our opponents? Do we know the identity of ourselves? Great
yeah.
questions.
Some people beat people, with their pace. Some people beat people by pounding the ball inside. Some people beat people from the 3-point line. Some people run sets, some people defensively. Some people, you know, uh don't help one pass away. Some people do. Some people are gonna pressure, like just trying to figure out like how can we win this game, and then how can we simplify that information that we're getting to our players, and just kind of giving them just so they're going into the game knowing this is what we're trying to do defensively, this is what we're trying to do offensively. And then being as good as you can be in gray areas. And we
Hmm.
talk about that a lot defensively. Like everybody, not everybody, but most people can be good in the black and white. Like when if they do this, we're going to guard it this way. If they do this, we're going to guard it this way. But then what happens if there is a breakdown in that?
Yeah. If
Now
there's
you have to be
options.
you have to
Yeah.
be good in that. I don't know. Are we switching this? I don't know. I'm not out there. Like all I could say is if you're going to see like you call ball and he'll peel off and we're fronted, and you do have to be good in gray areas, and I think that helps with scouting report and your basics, and then like short turnarounds. Because you do get in those games where you have a game on a Monday and then you're playing right on a Wednesday. I always call those like personnel and principle games. It's going to come down like, can you get locked in on the other team's personnel? And then do you trust your daily principles and your daily habits enough? Because there's no way in a 24-hour prep that you're going to be able to touch everything part of the game, that you want to get into. So, we're pretty simple in that regard. But I do think a big key is what we talked about at the beginning of this question is just like trying to identify, how this team beats people.
Yeah.
And let's try not to let them do that.
That's a big nugget. And every talk that I have, I feel like I come away with notes and notes. Then the difficult part, then I think any coach feels is when you read a lot of books, you watch a lot of clinics and things. There's so much good stuff out there. You can't use everything, but usually there's 1 or 2 things, and that's really good. Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the Jamodi Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them 1 rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other,
past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information. Being at head coach at the level you are, and you mentioned your family, I think it was a sophomore and junior high.
Yes, middle school son and sophomore daughter. Yeah.
Coach, the amount of time it takes, I was blown away by the Baylor staff years ago, just how hard they worked, the hours they put in. That hasn't changed for you. And I would imagine probably with the cell phones, the portal, all this stuff, like you're even more connected to it constantly. How do you balance coaching and what you have to do with family life?
Man, I think that's the challenge, right? For all of us, because we all know we're human beings. And so we're like oblivious really and truly to time. We think we're going to be here forever.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one thing you got to kind of constantly, maybe in the back of your mind, be conscious about, because I think that'll help you with your alignment of what's really important to you. And because I don't think at the end of the day, I'm just talking about for me personally. I can't speak for all coaches. I'll just speak for me. I don't think at the end of the day, when I'm sitting there, that I'm going to say, like, man, I wish I'd have watched, one more hour of film, even though I love watching film, even though I love this, I don't know. I think, like, man, I wish I would have talked to my mom one more time, or talked to my, and so I just think you got to really, you got to be conscious of that, man. Technology certainly helps now. I mean, there's negatives to the technology space, and there's positives. The positives of having, having this and your laptops is like, you don't have to just park yourself in the office 24/7.
Yeah.
Because you are able to be connected to your staff, to your players, to your program. You can do that mobily, and then trying to incorporate making sure you're incorporating your family into what you're doing, and having, as many combined spaces as you can get, make them a part of it. I think that's great for your players to see that and understand that, hey man, there is nothing more important to me than my family, and God, family, work, that's probably it. And again, I don't ever speak of this judgmentally to anybody else, but me personally, I don't have a lot of like hobbies. I don't, I come here and I love coaching basketball. I love my family. I'm going to go watch, my daughter play volleyball, my son play like, I love to do that. And then I'm just, if I'm not gone recruiting or gone playing, like I'm at home, so I think we can allow ourselves to get divided and distracted, on top of everything that we have going. But if you're intentional about what is important to you, then you'll find time for that. And sometimes that may mean, I am going to say no to this, learning how to say no and learn how to be, as a first time head coach at this level, it's been a learning experience. You do have to learn how to be way more efficient with your time. And, Coach Mack said this about Coach Drew. Coach Drew was the best. If he thought something, he just did it. If he thought about it, I need to call Matt, he would just call you. He wouldn't say, like, because so much comes at you throughout the day, you don't have a lot of time to go back to that. So if there's something you need to do, something I need to do, like, I just need to do it right then, and then do the next thing, and then do the next thing. You can't say, like, oh, I'll call Grant later, because you don't know what later is going to bring. So just trying to be efficient with your time. But other than that, man, just knowing what your priorities are, man, and making it a priority. We're fortunate here. I've told all my coaching friends that if you ever have the opportunity and the flexibility in your players' schedules, there's nothing better. We practice in the morning. So, if you talk about work-life balance, that opens up an avenue to have work-life balance, because I can be home for dinner, and I can be at volleyball games and baseball games, and I can help because we're practicing from 9 to 11, 8:30 to noon, and then you still have the day to get what you need to get done, as opposed to like if you have to practice at 4 and it's 4 to 7, and then you're kind of having your post practice, and now you're getting home at 8:30, and so that's one thing we've been very fortunate with and very blessed with, man. And I don't take that for granted. And I tell anybody, man, if you have the opportunity to work that into your schedule anyway, it's a winner, man. It's a winner.
There's a lot of good nuggets there. I think the work smarter, not harder idea comes in, especially when you said they're with our phones, with our computers, with online materials that we have. Yeah, the idea that we just have to be in the office. I think sometimes football coaches are still they work really hard. They work hard, man, no doubt.
Yeah.
But they're up there all the time. They're in the office, and maybe it's a little bit like a kind of a firehouse thing where they'd rather be there than at home. But I think making those right choices with when we're in the office, when we can be home, but a lot of good nuggets there. Coach, the speed round. These are quick questions. First thing that pops in your head, just blurt it out.
Okay.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Vanilla.
Toppings?
Sprinkles and caramel.
There you go. All right. Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph Curry.
Best basketball movie of all time?
Ooh, that's a good one. White Men Can't Jump.
Nice. Have you watched the show that's come out, or are you just stuck with the movie?
I haven't.
Yeah, me neither. Texting or talking?
Texting.
For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
Thanks, man.
Shot clock for sure.
It's got to be hard. In DFW, there's such great basketball to go to some games and just to see the pace be slowed down.
Come on, man. Let's make it happen.
Favorite holiday?
Oh, Christmas.
You're up 3 on defense with 7 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
Depends.
Nice.
I'm not a I know you want to I'm not a hardcore either way, man. I think there's a lot of factors into it. I think you have to be prepared to do it. I think you have to practice doing it. But time, foul trouble, are we at home? Are we on road? Do we have the better team? Can we rebound it? Do I trust the officiating crew? Like, there's a lot that go into it. But
see, I actually like that answer. I like that answer.
Some people are, but I'm not, man.
I think you look either way. People have lost choosing either one. So I like to be able to do both if I want, or do one or the other. That's a good answer. What book would you give someone?
I think I have the name of it. I think The Power of a Humble Life.
Huh.
I think was a good one. I think that's what it was.
All right. I'm writing it down. 2 more. Name a bucket list. Oh, you got it?
No, okay. I was looking at home.
Name a bucket list item you still need to do.
Bucket list item I still need to do. I would like to go watch a baseball game at Fenway Park.
Nice. That's a good one. All right, last one, Coach. Probably the most important in basketball. Who is the GOAT?
Man, everything was good until now half your audience is going to hate me and half your audience is going to like me.
It was a very positive episode up until this point.
I'm an 80s baby, so how could I say anything other than Jordan, man?
Nice. Yep. Not many people our age go without over him, but yeah.
It's hard. And I think they're all great, man, but yeah. I have to go with MJ.
Coach, this was awesome. I mean, I really appreciate your time. It was so much fun. I got to learn a lot, and giving up your busy schedule for this, just really appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It was awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
If coaches have any more questions for you because we didn't get into any of the defensive stuff, because I know that I literally in the notes it said Coach Hodge is a mastermind of the mean green defense. So if they have questions about that, well, that's what it says. If they have any questions or want to dive deeper, what's a good way for them to get in contact?
Yeah, just shoot me an email. Shoot me an email, Coach Ross Hodge at outlook.com. Yep. Shoot
Awesome.
that. And then, and then like I said, man, we're right here in Denton in the Metroplex, man. You guys, anybody, you guys are always welcome to come watch practice, to come hang out. Cause I love as much as I learned as much, in this setting as you do. So good stuff. And yeah, it's certainly, it's like I ain't got all the answers. So anybody's always welcome. I love to talk hoops. Love to hear people's ideas, thoughts, and everybody's always welcome up here.
I appreciate that. And being in DFW, I'll be rooting for you guys for sure. Love what the program has done the last few years. So excited to see it, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.